Creating success out of failure. Creating success out of failure.
I'm Jonathan Federa. I'm here to inspire you to hustle and grow your income while doing what you love. Just because you have problems doesn't mean you can't prosper. Just because you have tragedy doesn't mean you can't triumph. Actually, you should be taking advantage of that.
There's positivity in my pain. I took scarcity and turned it into strength. I always tell life, there's not much you can do to me where I won't make an obstacle an opportunity. We never lose, we only learn lessons. If you wanna change your perspective. If you don't know how to do that, we'll show you how right now. Cause it's about to go down. You are tuning in to creating success out of failure. Creating success creating success out of failure. Out of failure.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Creating Success Out of Failure podcast. My co-host, Jonathan Federa, will not be with us today, but I do have someone who is here and ready to speak about how he turned his failures into lessons that would then propel him into success. I'm really excited to announce my friend, my colleague, a mentor of mine, Brian McKittrick, who has just recently become a best-selling author on top of every other wonderful thing on his resume. So Brian, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
So excited to have you because you have such an interesting background. You have very diverse zones of genius that you always highlight to me whenever we see each other, and you can just help so many people on so many levels. I know your book, which is called It Ain't Rocket Surgery, makes it a fun, makes something that isn't such a fun topic always to talk about into something really light and fun. Put up the book again so everyone can see it.
I don't know if you're doing it, yeah.
The cover alone just shows that you're going to make this topic super fun.
Yeah.
I know you're really into the dad jokes. Do you weave any of those in? Like, give us some background on the book and then we can talk about your story.
Yeah. So I'm a bit of career sales professional. And sales is not always the funnest thing to get into. So I like to try to mix in a lot of humor. I'm in insurance as well. And if I, walk into a room, to a party, and I tell people that I'm in insurance and I'm a sales trainer, it's like, oh, and I can tell in the back of their head of like, oh, this guy seems nice. How do I get out of here? I didn't want to have something that is hard to get through. I mean, sales is something that it's tactical. There are different pieces you need to absolutely nail and get through with customers, but it doesn't need to be done in a way that's so draining. I've got a lot of great sales books, but they're not always the funnest to get through. So I wanted to have something more lighthearted.
I think that's a great idea because there's a lot out there. It's a saturated field that people talk about very often. Mm-hmm. And one marketing technique is to make yourself memorable. So I think you're doing a great job just at that. Mm-hmm. And I know on social media, I enjoy all the dad jokes that you post because they're funny mm-hmm. especially for a parent, because we can relate to so many of them. Yeah. So I love that. I really
that's I'm a dad. I've been a dad for, it's crazy to think, 17 years, but I do a lot with my son who's 8, and I want to weave that into and have, to have more of a 3D type of thing on your social media platform, someone that's more relatable. So if I am a dad, put that out there, then it encourages other dads and other families to work with me, which is exactly who I want to help and who I want to work with. Families and small business.
What I was going to ask is who are your ideal clients?
Yeah, I enjoy mostly helping small business owners, entrepreneurs, people that own their own companies or maybe are self-employed or contracted. And I've found that, we basically relate to who you kind of are. So being a family person, that's a lot of common ground that you can relate to somebody. So someone also family members, family owners, people who have children, people who are families, business owners also take insurance more seriously and are more really invested into having it. We have a great conversations because of that. So that's my ideal person to really to work with.
And I know that you're in the insurance space mm-hmm. right now, but my view is any sales techniques could really be applicable to almost any industry. Wouldn't you agree?
I absolutely agree. Yeah. So my book is not geared toward any sales industry at all. I was actually reluctant. I even pulled some out during the editing process of insurance specific examples. So I remember one chapter I was working with, and was talking about building value. I used a series of insurance examples, and I was like, you know what, let's take that out, because I want that to people to really know the format and the process for value in a sales conversation and not make it specific. So I've been a top performer in retail, selling cars, and now insurance since 2015 full time. But I didn't want to pigeonhole to any one sector.
That's smart, especially just because I think the information is really valid no matter what you're selling. And I'm sure you saw that in your transition from the automotive industry into the insurance industry.
Right.
How did you make that pivot?
So I actually started in '99. It's crazy to think about how long you've been doing something, but I started in sales in '99 in music retail. And that was the first opportunity in my life to go from trading time for money, because in commission, it's actually activity makes money, not just, okay, I'm going to show up for 8 hours, swinging a hammer or painting a wall and then go home. Commission is activity based. Just because you were there for 8 hours, if you were there for 8 hours doing absolutely nothing, you get paid nothing. So it's a way to generate a high income with no ceiling once you figure out the formula of, okay, this many conversations equals this many sales equals this much money. Once you figure out how to engineer that, which I do in chapter 8 of the book, that's when you can really start writing your own paycheck. So that's when I first figured that piece out. But it was retail. And then that company went out of business. Then I did cars for a year. I do enjoy the commission retail environment, went back and was very successful as a salesperson, store manager, until I, once again, another, I guess, changeover when you realize the cap of, I can't go any higher because this guy is in my way. I can go to another company, but I'm only stair stepping and running laterally. When I went to insurance full time and became an actual entrepreneur on your own, of your own independent company, that's when you really write a bigger check and you really can catapult what you had there, because you're not really answering to anybody. You only answer to yourself.
I agree. I mean, one thing I always talk about is freedom, and that comes in so many forms. One is,
Right.
Having the freedom, excuse me, to make your own schedule, having the freedom to have an unlimited earning potential, because there is no ceiling. The ceiling is whatever you make it,
Right.
However hard you want to work, or however many things you want to add. And then just freedom to work in the way that you want, with the client that you want, that most aligns with you. It's such a liberating experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. I had a hard time once. My last retail environment was I was a store manager of Office Max, and I was at the largest one in Dallas. But you run into these little, the corporate tells you to do this, and corporate writes the planogram, and it doesn't make any sense. I want to do this, and this works. It's sales. I can show you that it sells. Like, no. The planogram says this, and I was running into that quite frequently. So that's when it really kicked me to, you know what, I think I'm better operating as an entrepreneur fully on my own. An entrepreneur, there are many organizations, insurance is this way, where you operate loosely within a framework, but both of those fit someone who's really good at generating their own traffic, their own leads, and just don't want to be told no and be able to fully operate independently.
When did you start doing that? What year was that?
So I was first licensed in insurance in 2005. I left Best Buy and was going to go work for Guitar Center, but the position didn't start right away. There was some guy resigning, and anyway, all this other weight stuff. So I got my license at the end of 2005, and I kept it working doing part-time selling Medicare plans, the senior market. So and starting in 2014, when I when I switched my license to a Texas license from Oklahoma, I then started getting recruiting calls, and I kind of pushed them off because I was, doing retail. And finally one day, Office Max, I walked in, and it was people just randomly showed up in my store, district managers, whatever. And they told me that I needed to be at my store from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. I was driving 45 minutes from Arlington to Dallas, to downtown Dallas, from my store. I left before my family got up. I was coming home after they went to bed. and I was working 12 days out of every 14.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what, this is just not, I'm just running myself ragged. I'm capped. I'm not going to be able to go up any higher because this guy's in my way. This guy's ahead of me and this guy's ahead of me. So I called that recruiting company back, and that was a place in Fort Worth. I went to work, started working with them and hit it off right away. I was one of the fastest people in their history to hit 5 million sales. Actually, I did it without any book of my own. So I can say that I was the first person to do it without any customers of my own. But
that's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, people ask me, I do these sales trainings and they talk about sales and stuff. I one time said, going through a training, and I said, well, I did $2 million each in my first 2 years. And they said, is that a lot? I guess if you have no reference, you don't know. But yeah, if your average customer is $5,000, to do 2 million is 400 clients in a year. So
a lot of clients. That's a lot of clients.
It was a great place. I was there for until March of 2020 to come over here to do my own office. So that was more, I would say, that kind of the entrepreneurial level where they had a framework, but you're very much have a lot of leeway and the construct of how you want to do it. But I eventually realized that I need to be fully on my own and generate everything on my own. I've got no problem generating my own leads, either organically or paid leads or buy leads.
And you touched on such an important topic, because I think a lot of people are always afraid to take the leap from corporate life into entrepreneurship because they're afraid that they'll be working 24 hours a day. And what they don't realize is that's kind of actually what they're already doing. And if you're an entrepreneur, you get to make those hours of work around your life so that you get to incorporate some other stuff into your life, and you're not just working 12 out of 14 days straight.
Yeah. And you get to work exactly what you want to work on. I didn't have to go get permission to go get podcast equipment or go get, have a marketing idea or want to put, a new office together. You don't have to get an approval from anybody on that. Now, some people like the idea of, okay, I'm secure, I'm protected. That was my father's advice. So up until he passed away in 2005, that's kind of what I did. I just kind of stepped to, okay, I'm going to protect, my future, my family. I'm going to, still be in commission and sales, but I'm, protected because I'm in this corporate environment. But the downside of all that is that, you can be a cog in a machine. You can be taken from you, as opposed to being a true entrepreneur. You're writing your own ticket.
I totally agree. And people said the same thing to me when I left Wall Street. Like, how do you leave the security and prestige of a job that's corporate and safe and has a pension and a salary? And how do you just go to the total opposite where there's no safety? But for many of us, it feels like you're caged up and you have all this creative and ingenuity that's not getting released into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a freedom in that, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we like to talk about, though, is we see you here. We see you as a successful business owner. You run a really successful insurance agency. You have a best-selling book. And that's the highlight reel of your life, right? You're a father. I've met your son. He's so amazing. It shows how great of a parent you are, really. He's such a cute and genuine child. But I'm sure that your journey wasn't so seamless into success. Many of us have a lot of failures, which I like to call lessons, because I think that's truly what they are. And without those things, we wouldn't be where we are today. So on the podcast, we like to also delve into what are the hurdles and obstacles you've overcome to get to become and get to the place where you are now, to become the man that we see here today.
Okay. So I grew up in a family we didn't have a lot of money. My dad was, he is an engineer. Actually, his two brothers are engineers too. He actually was an entrepreneur early on. So I'm the oldest of three. And when it was just, my mom, my dad, and me, he had his own, he's a hot rod guy, loves hot rods. He always had a project car. He's always working on one from high school on up. And he had a hot rod shop that he had with his brother-in-law. Now he did all the body train stuff. So he was always busy, which is all the, the things that have to be constantly worked on, but not so much on the other side. But when I was, it was just me, the three of us, everything was fine, enough money coming through. But when my brother was born, then my other brother, then he had to go get quote unquote a real job. And that's when it started for him, where he needed to be in, protect yourself with the company, pension, salary, all that stuff. So anyway, that was the instruction that he had with me. But early on, there wasn't a lot of money between him working at a factory and my mom was a factory worker, then a fast food manager. So I'd learned this trade time for money thing. But also the home broke when I was 14. They got divorced and it's just kind of on my own. So I started working at 14 years old, but also out in the street doing wild stuff and being a wild person. So when I started working in the music store, not only was I top in the store, I became top in the region, even top in the company when they went to a commission based, but musicians around other musicians. So my whole life was music, working at a music store, then going home and playing gigs and living with other musicians. So all those musician stories, doesn't matter if you're like a big super rock star, they still happen for everybody else. So we were partying like crazy. And so I've told that story, a little bit, just a few people. One of the most dangerous people that you can have is somebody who's being wild, into bad stuff, destructive behavior, drinking, drugs, that kind of thing, yet still performing well in what they do because they're not seeing any consequence from their activity.
Yeah.
So when I was making good money in my early 20s, selling commission, being the top performer in the company level, going home and partying like a rock star, I didn't see any negative to that. So it wasn't until one day when we'd been partying up all night, and I think we had like 2 or 3 day party, and I had to go to the office or go to the store the next day, and we were having this meeting, and I was in the guitar department because I played electric bass. I still play today, but I was in the guitar department, and the meeting was in the guitar department. So the top sales performer, but I'd been up for a long time. And the night before, I was desperately trying to go to sleep, but we couldn't. I was sitting here slamming shots of gin, trying to fall asleep, but we never did. So we go to the meeting. Me and my roommate were like, okay, we can't say anything. We don't talk. But the meeting was all about exactly what we do. So when they're doing the meeting, they called on me. I didn't want to say anything because I was still high. And so my answer, I don't remember exactly what it was, but my answer was kind of a rambling mess. I wasn't like stumbling or, it wasn't gibberish, but it was a rambling mess. And my roommate was like, crap, he's talking. And when I got done with this crazy answer, one of the other guys, a total straight guy, he was just like, dude, that was crazy. He's like, what did you just say? After the meeting was over, the manager in the guitar area kind of pulled me aside, and I'd known this guy a couple of years already. And it was definitely one of those like, hey, I don't know what it is you're doing, but it's got to stop. And otherwise, something very, very bad is going to happen. So that was it for me to realize, okay, I can't continue to operate like this. So that's when I made the change out of that. But that's when I turned into being more involved in books. That's when I started kind of getting into the self-help stuff, Ziglar, later Covey, Tom Hopkins, that kind of thing. So that was kind of the low point of being so high that I couldn't come down, and having this revelation of this is unsustainable. Physical changes, mental changes, this meeting where I'm supposed to be speaking about something and it can't even function like that.
Now, there's a lot of people out there who struggle with addiction and just really with changing their lifestyle. And part of that is kind of letting go of maybe some of the people in your circle,
sure,
right? Because you're hanging out with the wrong people. So then you're doing things not in the best way that you can. And then you go to make a change, but your friends are these people from the previous self.
Yeah.
So what, if you could give someone in that situation who's trying to change their life but struggling to do so, give them some advice on what was like the first 1 or 2 micro steps you took towards tweaking your life.
For me, I don't know why this happened this way. Despite being a user or a heavy drinker, I was never addicted to it. Like I can just, we go a weekend and then next day, whatever, just it not be something I had to, I didn't have to rely on. I have known other people that literally they wake up and start drinking right away. I've known people like that. But that was never my case, but it is a matter of changing the environment. You do have to change where you are. Otherwise you might mentally make a switch, but if it's still around you, it's going to happen. You're going to fall back into it. So
what did you do to change your environment? What was like your first step?
Well, that store did eventually have hard times. They went out of business. So it forced me to go into the car sales. And shortly after doing that, I got an apartment of my own. So no more roommate, just me by myself. And then that became the catalyst to change it over. I went to another retailer that was a commission retailer after doing a year in cars. And I really dived into the, studying sales like Hopkins, Zig Ziglar, Stephen Covey. So really studying and investing in that self-help type stuff for myself and really getting into writing my own trainings, writing my own notes, meetings, that kind of stuff. So I really dove into that, but it was literally me living by myself. That was the main jump, getting out of the store and then getting out of that home environment where I was by myself and I can concentrate on improving myself first. That was a big step.
I think that's a good step for people to take, but a difficult one because you have these attachments to people who they might not necessarily be bad people, right? But they're just not aligned with the person that you want to become. Right. And I think a lot of times people don't realize how impactful their environment is, or the people that they're speaking with, how their energy transfers over to you and the things that you do, whether they just are negative or they're immersed in some kind of a nonsense, or those people that are constantly watching the news and getting anxious over everything. Like, those things do affect you. And then when you show up to your career, your business, you transfer that stuff into the business.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's going to have an effect on your mindset, who you're around, whatever they talk about, whatever their interest is, that definitely can cascade onto somebody else. You have to be very, very mentally strong to be in an environment and not participate or not pick up on that kind of stuff.
100%. I think subconsciously, even you just pick up on stuff and you're not even necessarily aware of it or how it's affecting you until you stop and get yourself into a healthier environment. And then you look back and you're like, whoa, that was really not a good place for me to be.
Yeah. A lot of people want to be independent. I was reading about this, and the guys who wrote Freakonomics, in their third book, they talk about this, but there is a subconscious thing in our mental capacity to fall into herd mentality.
100%. I agree. Yeah. So now you're a best-selling author, you're a successful business owner, and all that hard work is paying off, and you're getting a lot of traction, which is great. Where can people find you? Where can they find your book?
Okay. I made it really simple. So the book is about keeping it simple. It ain't rocket surgery. So literally it's just my name. So Brian McKittrick, BRIAN, last name is spelled McKittrick.com. And there's a brief bio there, and then links for getting the book, visiting my insurance. If you want some insurance information nationwide, I could help anybody in the country. And then all my social links are all right there.
All right, awesome. And we'll drop those in the comments of the podcast so that everyone can see them. And so to close out, what's next for you? Because I know you're not going to stop. You're super ambitious. Yeah. I know that there must be something fun on the horizon for you.
Yeah, so a couple of things I'm working on, but probably the one that's exciting wise is I did make a nice little podcast section in my conference room. I was just on the phone with my editor who's going to help me with some marketing stuff. And that's the next transition, is to have a podcast that supports the book. And then from there, I'd love to speak more. I do trainings twice a month. Those are insurance-based trainings, but turn it into sales trainings. And then love to get out there and on stages. I got one coming up in about 2 months with some friends, but that's my next passion, is to spread that information through more media. So podcast, and then getting on stage.
And I've seen you speak on stage and you're amazing. So whoever's in that audience is really lucky. And if you want to be in that audience, I suggest you guys start following Brian on the social media, get his book on Amazon, find him, follow him, learn from him. He's such an inspiration and a really amazing person to learn a lot from. So make sure you pick up the book. It Ain't Rocket Surgery. Follow him. I'll drop all the links. And I thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for coming to chat with us. And
Yeah,
guys,
thank you.
if you got anything out of this, which I'm sure that you did, make sure you hit like, follow us, leave a review. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, we will see you soon.
Creating success out of failure. Creating success out of failure.
Thanks for tuning in to Creating Success Out of Failure. Please share this with someone that needs to hear it, post it on social media, and leave us a 5-star review. I'll catch you on the next one.
Creating success out of failure.